Alright, we know what you clicked on, and we know how we're playing this out. We're talking about the worst, most unfathomable, most horrendous in-game trades you could get your hands on in each generation of Pokemon. Trades so awful that the fact they were put in the game was cruelty on Game Freak's part for making the devs waste time programming what ultimately came down to a little bit of trolling. I'm going into mostly your playthrough and how little it does, how useless it is, and why you shouldn't get it. I won't be getting hyper specific because odds are you know what most of the Pokemon on this list contribute to a playthrough. What you might not know is that these trades are there at all, because I sure didn't for the longest time. Now let's hop into it with Generation 1. So trades are typically supposed to be equal in value, right? At least that's the typical idea behind a trade. Sadly, this isn't always the case, as I said in the intro. However, for some reason back in the day, Game Freak thought that a trade between the physically bulky psychic type with access to amnesia up to boosted special was worth trading over to get your hands on the indescribable tub of lard with a large tongue and less use in a fight than some of the game's middle stage Pokemon. On Route 18, specifically in Pokemon Red and Blue, there is some dude named Mark who has the audacity, the complete and utter gall, to offer you Lickitung in exchange for the Pokemon you just trained up to level 37 to get. This has to be one of the most disrespectful trade offers I have ever seen in my life. Hold on there, Mystic. What's so bad about Lickitung? You might be wondering to yourself, depending on whether or not you've actually used this Pokemon. To answer that, I'm going to put their stats on the screen, first and foremost. Secondly, I am going to zoom in on Lickitungs. Alright, so notice how it's god-awful, especially in comparison to Slowbro. Any good level up moves to compensate? No. Yeah, it has coverage, but said coverage requires you to use your TMs, which you would rather use on other Pokemon. Not to mention, by the time you get your hands on this disgusting creature, you more than likely already have Chansey, Snorlax, or Tauros, who are all infinitely better. By the way, Lickitung gets better in Gen 4 with Licklicky, so it's not like I hate the entire line. And Jesse's from Team Rocket was kinda cool. Now look, this trade isn't technically bad. However, in terms of getting you through the game, the reason this trade is on here is because it's entirely pointless. In Pokemon Crystal in Pewter City, someone wants to trade you Haunter for Xatu. This girl named Doris somehow thinks this is a fair trade. Honestly, this shouldn't even count anyways. This is technically post-game, so I'll probably put one earlier in the game after this to talk about so I can abide by my own rules. But I find this trade so offensive and so disgusting that I had to bring it to light for this video. Why am I so harsh on this trade? Because by the time you get here, you should already have access to Xatu. The only way this trade is fair is if someone didn't find the part of the Ruins of Alph with the tall grass. Which, yeah, I get it. It's a way to mitigate someone not exploring, but most people would have explored and found it by this point. Not to mention, giving her Haunter means they get Gengar, and in return, you get a Pokemon that is way worse than Gengar. Now, if you want a trade earlier in the game that's offensively bad, I think that Dragonair for Dodrio is fine, given that you don't get Dragonite until the post-game level-wise. I think Krabby for Voltorb, however, is a horrendous trade deal, because you can just go catch Electrode in the Team Rocket base in Mahogany anyways, and that's accessible the moment you get Surf. It doesn't take a genius to tell that it's a pretty worthless trade, and I would rather just keep my Krabby regardless of if Kingler isn't good in Gen 2. It is, however, a pretty good HM slave. In terms of post-game, you'd think that Doug Trio for Magneton and the Power Plant is worse. But no, actually. That Magneton has a metal coat, and you already know what that means. You must think that I am the Pinhead Larry on the planet if you think I'm gonna trade a Bellossom that I had to get out of my way to get, Sunstone and all, for a Corsola. This isn't Galarian Corsola, nor is there Eviolite, nor is there Strength Sap. They want you to actually take a fully evolved grass type, which is pretty good for a grass type Pokemon, especially towards the later half of the game, and relinquish it for the sake of a Pokemon that has the approximate value of a penny on the ground. Yes, I know Corsola is cute, and that's great, but I'm trying to get through the game here. I'm not trying to collect something because it's cute this time. Maybe on a better day. One where I actually let my writer write his Dedenne appreciation video. That is when I will continue to indulge on an adorable design. Corsola might just outright be the most bonkers trade on this list, because not only do they want your Bellossom for it, who is cuter than Corsola anyways, but they want you to trade it for a Pokemon with stats that look like this. And it has a type combo that if I want so bad, I will go get a Pokemon introduced in this generation called Relicanth. And not only does it have better stats, but once I remember how to read Braille, I'm pretty sure it can help me get my hands on one of those cool Regigolems. Lane from Pacifidlog and Ruby and Sapphire is wilding right now. I mean, we all know where this is going. We've made this joke at least once or twice now. This trade is as notorious as it is for a reason. So I'm not gonna lie or over-exaggerate this time that I and many others have already done. So instead, I'm gonna go on a mini rant about Mindy from Snowpoint City. Not only did she take away my fighting type, which I could have used against Candace, but she also gave me a Pokemon I can't evolve unless I have another Gen 4 game and another Nintendo DS on hand. So yeah, Mindy pretty much scams you. And yeah, she sucks. I was going to do the Excadrill for Ambipom trade in Accumula Town in Black and White 2 that Diana gives you, but that's a post-game thing. So instead, let's go back to the original games and ask ourselves a very important question. Why on earth would we trade our Boldore for a Pokemon that can be obtained in the nearby tall grass? Hiker Manny on Route 7 wants a Boldore and is willing to offer you up an Emolga. Even though, if you want an Emolga, you can just go to the grass nearby and go catch it like a normal person. Yeah, an Emolga with boosted experience would normally be nice, especially with access to acrobatics. And that's cool and all, but you don't really need more experience by this point when you already have the lucky egg that was given to you even before Mistralton City. Not to mention that Emolga is also on routes 5 and 6 before this, and is on even more routes after this. You never have any incentive to do this trade, unless for some reason you were really unlucky and couldn't get the flying squirrel to stay in the ball. Honestly, skill issue. Me personally, I always catch my Pokemon on my first try. In fact, I'll do it right now. Whoever is editing this, if you don't edit this out, I'm demoting you. Past mystic. Unfortunately, I'm the one editing. And I got over my embarrassment of failing this catch. Mauled harder, buddy. So, in the Kalos hotels, I kid you not, there is just some hiker. Bro is named Caveat, which is very fitting, honestly. And the trade he wants might actually be the true worst trade on this list. Yeah, Bellossom-Corsola is pretty bad, and I'm always going to bash it, but this is a whole new level of completely psychologically deranged. Normally, there's incentive to make a trade, like making it easier to complete the Pokedex, or getting your hands on a Pokemon that's more useful to you for where you are in the game. This has absolutely none of that. Hiker Caveat wants you to trade your fully evolved Gyarados for a level 5 Magikarp. There's no item it's holding, no guaranteed nature, nothing special about it, except for some specific IVs being maxed out. But it's just a Magikarp at level 5 in exchange for a Magikarp you already took time out of your life to train up. There is no real benefit to actually taking this trade in your playthrough. This is just here to waste your time. Avoid it like you would a shady back alley thug who is trying to get you to buy rare candies. Speaking of trades you want to avoid, the trade I'm going to describe is yet another worthless one, for reasons beyond reasons. However, I'm going to try to make said reasons brief because there are more than enough of them. I will start off with the fact that this is a Trumbeak for Arbok trade. No rational Pokemon trainer would ever give up a potential Toucannon for Arbok under any circumstances. At least, not that I know of. Arbok isn't great, and doesn't really do a lot, and I think we all have accepted that. The next thing that makes this trade not worth it is that it's on Route 8, when you can get Ekans on Route 2, and just have it in the party taking up experience with the experience share if you want an Arbok that badly. Third of all, it has no special item or anything that's actually worth it to my immediate knowledge. It has the Balm Mushroom, which I'm sure sells for a bit, and knowing my luck is probably important to some niche side quests that I happen to not remember when compressing the knowledge of 9 whole generations into my head. However, the Arbok itself has the approximate worth and value of a pile of sand. Actually, no. A pile of sand would do more because you can throw it at an opposing Pokemon and make their attacks less accurate. Arbok has no such benefits, so keep your Trumbeak. Look, I'm going to be honest, this trade is gonna be one where Mystic is being more biased than anything else. Gotta throw in my personal preferences periodically. As you know, I like dark types. That's part of my thing. Now, I'm not saying that if I was a dark type gym leader, I would be using this Pokemon. Mostly because having a ×4 weakness wouldn't complement my strategy in battle all too well. But I'm saying there's not a single way in the world that you would ever catch me trading a Pokemon that makes daily visits to the Salty Spittoon for a Pokemon whose favorite place to go is Weenie Hut Juniors. I'm not saying Mr. Mime is a bad choice for your team. Psychic and Fairy is pretty solid, and Mr. Mime has solid stats, a solid level up pool, and good TM and TR options if you can get your hands on them. However, Team Yell Edmund from Spikemuth wants to give you a soundproof Mr. Mime and not the superior filter Mr. Mime. And I think that's an insult to my dignity. Not to mention, odds are, I caught this Zigzagoon at the very beginning of the game and used it all throughout my playthrough of Sword and Shield. And this guy wants me to trade it away? Get that Weenie Hut Jr. chump out of here. One of the biggest disappointments in my day as I am writing this is that there are not 1, not 2, but 3 trades in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Why was this disappointing? Because I had something else originally planned for this where I was going to start slandering. I was going to tear apart the agreement to use both Quagsire and Gengar, and I was going to start saying that they're both bad, and if you use them, you're bad, and it's not worth the trade. I was going to become the enemy of the internet and begin to encourage flame wars from Quagsire and Gengar fans while reveling in the destruction taking place in the wargrounds that would have been the YouTube comment section. However, I find myself effortlessly defeated and thwarted by a flower fairy and an ice bug. For you see, for what I was unaware of at the time of writing this video was that there was a third trade in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and that in Cortando, near the start of the game, some dude named Glenn was out here wanting a Flabébé in exchange for a Snom. And thus, my dastardly plan was ruined by this third player in the game. Because it happens that Frostmoth is just worse than Quagsire and Gengar. And even if the trade was reversed and it was Snom for Flabébé, Florges just isn't Quagsire and Gengar. Yeah, Frostmoth is fine, but by the time you get Quiver Dance, it's a little too late really. And you had better Pokemon you could have been using. And that's what matters. Literally, that's what matters. Because it being bad means that I can't start a flame war in my comment section. So, what have we learned today? Well, what we learned so far is that every single plan I have come up with through the course of these videos has amounted to nothing. Persiker being the best Giftmon in Gen 9? Nah. Quagsire and Gengar come along to ruin it. I want to destroy Quagsire and Gengar as revenge for what they did to me. Flabébé and Snom are up to bat. I want to dedicate a segment to Dodrio and my underrated flying type video. And that darn Swallow shows up and then berates me and my rider. Speaking of which, apparently before we go, my rider has some words for Swallow. He seemed to have written them down in this video, and so I will read it out for those interested. Let's see. Dear Swallow, Cope and Seethe. I could never see myself being locked in the 2 items, none of which prevent me from taking stealth rock damage. Cry about it. Sincerely, Ryder. Damn. Well, he spoke from the heart, and I assume he's prepared in case Swallow doesn't take that letter well, much less Swallow fans. I just wish him the best of luck. In the meantime, because I'm sure that Swallow is going to facade or boomburst a messenger, I'm going to go and put a choice scarf on my pet Morpeko just in case.